Looking back, it feels surreal to think that something so terrifying happened to me. It's hard to believe that someone I once loved turned into my worst source of fear. It all started with a difficult breakup, one of those that leave you emotionally drained. Laura and I were a passionate couple, or at least I thought we were. In the beginning months, everything was like a fairy tale, but then the dark clouds rolled in. Laura was always intense, the kind of person who experienced highs and lows with great force. I loved her, but the relationship was becoming increasingly suffocating. I felt like I needed space, but every time I tried to talk about it, she reacted badly, as if the mere thought of us drifting apart was a threat to her life. When I finally gathered the courage to end things, I expected an emotional reaction, but I wasn't prepared for what followed. Laura entered a state of complete denial. She called me incessantly, sent long messages begging us to get back together. At first I tried to be gentle, explaining that it was for the best, but she wouldn't listen. The situation quickly deteriorated, then came the threats. Laura started accusing me of betrayal, something I had never done. She sent me angry messages, saying I would regret leaving her. Initially, I ignored her, but when she started showing up at places I went, I realized things had spiraled out of control. She followed me on social media, knew my every move. One night, returning home from work, I felt as though someone was watching me. I looked over my shoulder several times but saw nothing unusual. When I got home, though, I sensed something was off. The door was unlocked and I was certain I had locked it before leaving. I entered cautiously, heart pounding. Inside, everything seemed normal at first, but then I noticed something odd in my bedroom. The photo of us together, which sat on the bedside table, was turned upside down. A shiver ran down my spine. I knew I hadn't done that. That night, I could hardly sleep, convinced Laura had invaded my home. In the days that followed, things only got worse. Laura started sending me strange gifts, dead flowers and disturbing notes. I blocked her numbers, but she always found a way to contact me. I began to feel like I was losing my mind, always looking over my shoulder, afraid of what might happen next. Then one day I received an anonymous letter. Inside were photos of me taken without my knowledge, at different times of the day, in places I frequented. My hands trembled as I looked at those photos. How had she managed this? The fear I felt in that moment was paralyzing. I decided to go to the police, but without concrete evidence, there wasn't much they could do. They advised me to keep a record of everything and avoid contact with Laura. I followed their advice, but Laura seemed determined not to leave me alone. I had a constant feeling she was always watching, waiting for an opportunity. The climax came on a cold autumn night. I was returning home after dinner with friends. As I entered my building, something in the air made me shiver. I raced up the stairs, desperate to reach my apartment and lock the door. But when I reached my floor's corridor, I saw a figure standing near my door. My heart nearly stopped. It was Laura. She was there, holding something in her hands. When she saw me, her face lit up with a smile that sent chills down my spine. I knew I needed to flee, but before I could react, she advanced toward me. Instinctively, I took a few steps back, but she didn't relent. "You can't escape from me," she whispered, and then I realized what she held in her hands: a knife. My body froze. Laura was completely unhinged. I screamed, but no one seemed to hear. Then, in a moment of pure adrenaline, I managed to dodge her and run towards the stairs. I heard her footsteps behind me and the sound of the knife hitting the railing. I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I descended the stairs as fast as I could, without looking back. I reached the ground floor, opened the door, and ran into the street. I only stopped when I reached a distant corner, breathless and in shock. I immediately called the police. The police arrived quickly, but when we returned to the building, Laura was gone. They searched for her for hours, but found no trace. I was taken to give a statement, to recount everything I knew about Laura and our relationship. That's when I discovered just how disturbed she really was. Laura had a history of untreated mental issues. Her parents confirmed she had a past of obsessive behavior. They were as shocked as I was by what had happened. While I was at the station, I received a call. Laura had been located. She was detained and taken to a psychiatric facility. I felt relieved, yet still lived in fear. Knowing she was off the streets gave me some peace, but the emotional scars of that experience lingered. I wondered if I would ever feel safe again, if I could overcome the terror Laura had brought into my life. Now, months later, I am more cautious. I keep my distance from relationships, wary that something like this could happen again. Sometimes I still have nightmares about that night. But I'm determined to move forward, to find peace and security again. After all, I survived something that could have been much worse, and for that, I'm deeply grateful. It was a dark and stormy night when I received an unexpected message from my ex-girlfriend, Lily. Our relationship had ended abruptly several months earlier, after she discovered my infidelity, and since then, we hadn't spoken. So when her message popped up on my phone, inviting me to meet her at a bar near her house that evening, I was taken aback. Despite the tumultuous end to our relationship, a small part of me felt a surge of excitement. Maybe, I thought optimistically, Lily couldn't resist, giving us another chance. Or perhaps she simply wanted to have a friendly drink and catch up. With a mix of nerves and anticipation, I agreed to meet her. As I walked into the dimly lit bar, I saw Lily sitting at a corner table. She looked different, calm and composed, a stark contrast to the angry and betrayed woman I had known before. A warm smile crossed her face when she saw me, and for a moment, I allowed myself to believe that things could be different this time. We exchanged pleasantries, and to my surprise, the conversation flowed effortlessly. It was almost as if the past had been erased, and we were reconnecting as friends. Lily seemed genuinely interested in what I had been up to, and I found myself enjoying her company more than I expected. After a couple of drinks, Lily suggested we order another round. As I sipped my drink and chatted with her, everything suddenly went black. When I regained consciousness, I found myself lying on a bed in an unfamiliar room. Panic surged through me as I sat up and stumbled towards the bathroom. The sight that greeted me in the mirror was horrifying. My face was swollen and bruised, almost unrecognizable. Blood stained my shirt, and my head throbbed with pain. I couldn't comprehend what had happened. Desperate for answers, I stumbled out of the room and found Lily lying on the sofa in the living room. It dawned on me, I was in her house. Fear gripped me as I shook her awake. "Lily, what happened?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. Lily appeared startled but composed herself before responding. Her eyes filled with concern. "Michael, you were really drunk tonight. On our way back here, you tripped and fell face first onto the pavement. It was a terrible accident," she explained, her voice steady but filled with worry. Her explanation didn't make sense. Yes, I had been drinking, but the extent of my injuries felt more severe than a simple fall. I couldn't trust her version of events, but before I could confront her further, she urged me to rest. Rattled and suspicious, I hastily made my excuses and left. The moment I arrived home, I stripped off my clothes to take a shower and noticed bruises and abrasions covering my body, evidence of trauma that couldn't have been caused by a fall. As the days passed, Lily continued to reach out, her messages laced with sarcasm and hints about our night together. Each interaction left me more unsettled, haunted by the suspicion that she was hiding something sinister. Unable to shake the feeling of dread, I confided in a close friend who urged me to confront Lily or seek help from the authorities. But without concrete evidence, I was at a loss for what to do. Nightmares plagued my sleep, vivid scenes of that fateful night playing out in terrifying detail. I couldn't escape the sense that Lily had orchestrated something terrible, but I was powerless to prove it. Determined to regain control, I severed all contact with Lily. I changed my phone number and avoided places we had frequented together. Still, her shadow loomed large in my thoughts, a chilling reminder of the dangers lurking beneath the surface of seemingly normal relationships. In the end, I learned a valuable lesson about trust and betrayal. The scars, both physical and emotional, reminded me that some wounds run deep, leaving lasting impressions that shape our future interactions. As I moved forward with my life, I vowed never to underestimate the darkness that dwells within those we think we know best. Lily's lingering presence was a cautionary tale, a reminder that true horror often wears a familiar face. My name is Sophia, and I would like to share with you the terrible experience I went through after ending my relationship with a man who turned out to be very different from the person I imagined. It all started when I decided to break up with my boyfriend, Lucas. Initially, he seemed like a nice guy, but over time, his true nature began to reveal itself. He was controlling, possessive, and sometimes even aggressive. I felt trapped in our relationship, so I made the difficult decision to end it. On the day I ended things, Lucas was furious. He didn't take the breakup well and started sending me messages and calling repeatedly, begging me to reconsider. I stood firm, blocking him on all social media and my phone. I also decided to move to a new house to ensure my safety. The first few days in the new house were quiet, but soon I started noticing something strange. I often saw a car like Lucas's in the nearby streets. I had never given him my new address, so this left me extremely worried. Was he following me? On a rainy night, returning home, I had a feeling that something was wrong. The front door was slightly ajar and my heart sank. Someone had broken into my house. In a panic, I called the police and waited outside until they arrived. The house was ransacked, but fortunately, the intruder had already fled. After that incident, I became even more vigilant. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, afraid of what Lucas might do. Unfortunately, that fear became a reality. One day, I received a message from Lucas demanding that I leave my house and meet him at a parking lot in front of my building. He was there waiting, with a grim expression. He said that if I didn't come to him, he would come to me. So I went. "You're coming back to me, Sophia. I know you want me. I can't stand this separation anymore," he said with a harsh voice and piercing gaze. "Lucas, please don't do anything impulsive. We can talk, but don't hurt me," I pleaded, trying to stay calm. He forced me into the car and started driving towards a deserted area outside the city. My heart was pounding uncontrollably as he talked about how we were meant to be together and how my life wouldn't make sense without him. "If you're not going to be with me, then you're not going to be with anyone else," he said with a chilling coldness. I tried everything to escape, but Lucas was stronger. He held me firmly and ignored my desperate pleas. That's when I had a risky idea. "Lucas, please, can we try again? I still love you, but we need time to rebuild our relationship," I suggested, swallowing my pride. He seemed to consider my proposal for a moment and finally agreed. "Okay, Sophia, if you give me a chance, I can become the man you love again," he said with a sinister smile. Back at my house, I had to pretend that I was willing to reconcile our relationship. It was a painful facade, but necessary to keep myself safe. In the following weeks, Lucas seemed to make an effort to be the ideal partner. He was attentive, caring, and apparently willing to change. However, I knew this wouldn't last forever. Meanwhile, I planned my escape. I researched legal options and sought advice from professionals to ensure my safety. I couldn't risk confronting Lucas without a solid plan. Finally, the day of my ambush arrived. I knew I had to act quickly before he could hurt me again. I invited Lucas to a meeting in an isolated location, where the police were already waiting. Seeing him being arrested, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. The person I once loved had turned into a dangerous monster. From that moment on, I promised myself that I would never allow anyone to control or hurt me in that way again. Thank you for watching until here. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. See you soon.